All right, let's get right into it. We're about to open up a case file on what is basically a cyber detective story. We're talking about a top secret weapon, something built for spies, that somehow escaped. It got out into the wild and fell right into the hands of criminals. This is the story of how that all went down. And really, this is the big question, right? What actually happens when a tool built for super precise espionage breaks containment? Well, it doesn't just vanish. It evolves, it spreads, and its target list changes from high-value government officials to, well, the device that's probably in your hand or your pocket right now. So, here's our game plan for this investigation. We're going to break it down into 5 key parts. We'll start with the escape itself, then we'll dissect the weapon to see how it works. We'll trace its journey from spies to criminals, dig into its mysterious origins, and then, the most important part, what you can do to protect your iPhone. Okay, first up, the spy weapon that escaped. This is the critical moment, the turning point where everything changes. I mean, think about it. These incredibly sophisticated tools, originally designed to target presidents and diplomats, are suddenly out in the open, being turned against everyday people. The game has completely changed. All right, part 2. Let's really get into the anatomy of this threat. We need to understand the weapon at the center of this whole story. Its name is CORUNA, and trust me, once we start to peel back the layers here, you're going to see just how powerful and, frankly, how brilliantly engineered this thing is. So what is CORUNA? At its core, it's something called an exploit kit. And the absolute best way to think about that is like a digital master key. It's a whole package of tools whose only job is to probe your iPhone, jiggling all the digital locks, looking for one single weak spot. And the moment it finds one, bam, it uses the right tool from its kit and lets itself in. And we're not talking about just 1 or 2 keys here. No, the scale of this thing is kind of wild. It comes packed with 23 individual exploits. That's 23 different ways it knows how to pick a lock. And these aren't just a random jumble of tools either. No way. This is professional grade. They're engineered into 5 complete, totally distinct attack chains, which means it has multiple independent game plans for how to break into your device. That makes it incredibly versatile, and you guessed it, incredibly dangerous. So you might be wondering, who's actually at risk here? Well, this is the really scary part. The weapon's reach is just massive. It affects a huge range of iOS versions, stretching all the way from September of 2019 to December of 2023. That is a 4-year window. We're talking about millions of unupdated iPhones, all potentially at risk from visiting just one single bad website. Okay, so that brings us to our next chapter, from espionage to theft. This raises the obvious question, how does a weapon this powerful end up bouncing around so freely? Well, the answer takes us into the very murky, unregulated world of digital arms dealers, where these kinds of spy tools are just sold to the highest bidder. And when you look at the timeline, the spread was shockingly fast. In less than a year, CORUNA went from being used by a spy tech customer to being used by a suspected Russian state-backed group against websites in Ukraine. And then, finally, it lands in the hands of a Chinese criminal group. Spies to soldiers to thieves, all in under 12 months. And this quote from the mobile security firm IV Verify, I mean, it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? This captures the new reality perfectly. This isn't some abstract technical problem anymore. It's a fundamental shift in who the targets are. So what did the criminals do with this powerful tool? They weren't interested in state secrets. Their motive was much, much simpler: money. They ripped out the original espionage tools and they plugged in their own malware. It's a payload that researchers call plasmagrid, and its one and only job is to find and empty crypto wallets. It specifically targets 18 different crypto apps. Yeah, including the big ones like MetaMask, Phantom, and Exodus. And once it gets on your phone, this thing is relentless. It's programmed to be a digital thief just rummaging through your personal files. It will automatically scan your Notes app, looking for keywords like seed phrase. It even digs through your entire photo library, hunting for any screenshots of QR codes that could lead to a crypto wallet. Okay, section 4. This is where the story gets really interesting and pretty controversial. A weapon this sophisticated doesn't just appear out of nowhere. Somebody had to build it. The question is, who? The digital breadcrumbs point to a very intriguing and very debated origin story. So to figure out where this came from, you really have to look at both sides of the debate. The case for a direct link comes from this. Corona uses two very specific, very complex vulnerabilities known as photon and gallium. Now, these are the exact same vulnerabilities that were used in another attack on Russian diplomats called Operation Triangulation. At the time, Russia's own intelligence agency blamed that on the NSA, which leads some to suspect a U.S. contractor was behind Corona. But there's also a strong case for it just being a coincidence. An expert from Kaspersky, Boris Larin, points out that just because two tools use the same vulnerability, it doesn't mean they're related. His analogy is perfect. Two carpenters can use the same blueprint for a window, but build two completely different houses. So for now, the origin is still a mystery. And that brings us to our final section, how to protect your iPhone. Let's bring this investigation home. We've talked about spies, criminals, and conspiracies, but the most important question is, what does all this mean for you? So let's go through your defense plan. Now, you are not powerless here. There are three simple but really effective steps you can take. Number one, and this is the most critical, update your phone. All of the exploits Corona uses have been patched by Apple, so update. Number two, enable lockdown mode, especially if you think you might be a target. The malware is actually programmed to stop its attack if it detects this mode. And number three, reboot your phone daily. It sounds simple, but a quick reboot can actually wipe out infections that only live in your phone's active memory. And look, if you take only one thing away from this whole explainer, let it be this. We saw that this malware specifically hunts through your notes and your photos. So please, please, never ever store your crypto recovery phrase as plain text in a note or as a screenshot in your photos. To put it another way, storing your seed phrase on your phone is the digital version of leaving the key to your bank vault just taped to the front door. It's really that simple, and it's that dangerous. So we'll end on this thought. The story of Corona is so much bigger than just one piece of malware. It shows that when governments and spy agencies build these unbelievably powerful cyber weapons, they can't always control where they end up. A weapon designed for one target today can be easily turned against anyone tomorrow. Which leaves us all with a pretty heavy question to think about. In this new digital arms race, who is ever truly safe?